presentation on the challenges faced by Vietnam, the policy choices made by the government, and how the UN development system has responded to and support those policy choices. Ambassador Giang, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. I promise I will keep my remarks within 10 minutes, and I hope you will like my remarks as much as the pictures I'm going to show you. Mr. President, Mr. Administrator, members of the Executive Board, Excellencies and ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to present at this dialogue right at the occasion of the 45th anniversary of the partnership between Vietnam and the UNDP. And you can see the picture, there are a lot of generations of UNDP present in Vietnam. The UNDP has been and will continue to be one of the most important and trusted partners of the government of Vietnam and the people of Vietnam during our development and integration pathway. I'd like to take this opportunity to express our gratitude to our tireless effort, dedication, and commitment of the UNDP's, Vietnam's representatives, experts, and staff for the development and prosperity of Vietnam throughout the past 45 years. Now let me turn to the topic of the today's dialogue. First, I'd like to give you a context and background about my country. In the past 3 decades, Vietnam has transformed ourselves from one of the poorest economies in the world to a low middle-income country with an aspiration to achieve high-income country status by 2045. The multi-dimensional poverty index, which is formulated with the UNDP support, showed a reduction of multi-dimensional poverty by 50% between 2016 and 2020. And the headcount poverty rate fell from 58% in 1992 to just 4% in 2020. However, that aspiration faced enormous challenges when the COVID-19 pandemic struck, resulted in economic development setback. The economic growth dropped from 7% in 2019 to only 2% and 2.9% and 2.5% in 2020 and 2021, respectively. Millions of workers and small business owners suffered loss or reduction of incomes. The pandemic struck as Vietnam also faced intensifying climate change impacts. The Mekong River Delta, a rice bowl for Vietnam and the region, is subject to rising sea levels, saltwater intrusion, and the impacts of extreme weather with intensifying storms and flooding. Therefore, responding to the COVID-19 at the same time, adapting to climate change and achieving a just energy transition with a view to recover and sustain economic development are critical and simultaneous tasks. In this context, our government implemented a number of policies and strategies under the principle of leaving no one behind. In particular, the government made a strong commitment that the people's health and the environment should in no way be sacrificed for purely economic growth. On responding to COVID-19 pandemic to enable an economic recovery, Vietnam responded effectively to protect people's health, consistently pursuing a policy of protecting the people's health first through focusing on tracking, tracing, social distancing, mass testings, public awareness campaigns, and selective use of quarantine. Second, to cushion the trade-offs of the health-first policy of livelihoods, the government allocated substantial social protection coverage to support affected enterprises, workers, and vulnerable groups. Third, to address both health and socio-economic priorities, the government invested intensive efforts in sourcing adequate vaccine supplies. These efforts include the vaccine diplomacy strategy to reach out to different sources to ensure adequate vaccine through COVAX, UN agencies, and our international partners. These efforts enable us to carry out the largest vaccination campaign in the history, and therefore achieve near universal full vaccination by March last year. These successful immunization campaigns protect millions of citizens and, in its turn, enable prompt economic recovery. Now, with regard to the climate action, despite constrained fiscal space, the government kept in view the long-term development priorities. Vietnam made bold commitments at the COP26 in 2021 to achieve net zero carbon emissions by 2050. This was followed by the Just Energy Transition Partnership in December 2022 with a pledge of 15.5 billion of public and financing to advance our climate ambitions. Thanks to these timely and efficient policies and strategy, Vietnam has achieved positive results in post-pandemic recovery. The economic growth reached now 8% in 2022 last year, highest in the past 10 years. Macroeconomic stability is ensured and debt are sustainably managed. Multidimensional poverty index reduced by 1.2% compared to 2021. And Vietnam kept its high human development status in 2021. These results could not be possible without the support of our trusted partner, especially UNDP. The government and the UNDP shared a thorough understanding of the central importance of the government ownership and the public sector administrative and technical capacity, and the criticality of learning from policy and programmatic experiments and sharing lessons learned. I give you some examples. First, Vietnam's priority to health in the pandemic response benefited from 2 decades of technical support from the UNDP, together with the WHO and other UN agencies in the early warning systems and health surveillance following the SARS epidemic, which Vietnam was the first country to control in 2003. During the COVID-19, we also worked closely with the UNDP to develop and pilot the Doctor for Everyone digital telehealth solution, connecting commune health stations with provincial and district health facilities and local communities in isolated areas. The equipment procured through UNDP during the COVID-19 is continuing to be used for diagnosis by healthcare facilities. The digital telehealth program is providing residents with access to improved quality healthcare with more than 500,000 accounts established and nearly 18,000 telehealth appointments. On social protection, the UNDP helped Vietnam leverage funds from Australia, Ireland, Japan, Korea, Norway, and other development partners in support of the principle of leaving no one behind. On climate change and green recovery, our partnership on developing national strategies to manage the impacts of climate change, which goes back 2 decades, continue with the JETP, the Just Energy Transition Partnership, climate finance and efforts to protect poor and vulnerable citizens from the impacts of climate change and the energy transition. Despite the progress achieved that I have mentioned, we expect further challenges ahead. First, global issues such as climate change, geopolitical tension, conflicts, pandemic, food, and energy crisis are posing serious threats on our development strategy, which are only at the beginning steps of implementation. Second, it would take a massive effort and resources to fulfill our development commitments. We are expected to achieve only 5 of 17 SDGs at the current rate. On climate action, according to the UNDP, development of renewable energy sources require massive effort that could absorb as much as 600 billion by 2050. And the 15.5 billion that we achieved with the JETP is just a beginning. At the same time, being the middle income country, resources are more limited as Vietnam no longer has access to concessional finance, as well as many other middle-income countries. Therefore, we need to mobilize resources from many other sources for our development and climate ambition. In view of initiative achievements that have been made and tremendous challenges ahead of us, we have come up with several lessons learned and recommendations that we think that would be useful for us to work together and for the UNDP to consider. First, we believe that national resilience and government ownership are crucial. The government has the primary responsibility to protect and improve the livelihoods and the environment of its people. In this regard, I think there are several measures that each and every government should consider. First, maintain political stability. Our lesson learned is that there is no development without peace and stability. Second, macroeconomic stabilization and ensuring social security and protection for all are crucial to leave no one behind under any circumstances, or either in the pandemic or either in the economic crisis. Third, strengthen national internal power and encourage the participation of all sectors in the society in tandem with mobilizing external resources through intensifying international partnership, foreign investment, and free trade agreements. And fourth, avoid spreading resources too thinly by identifying and focus on priority areas. Encourage participation of the private sector and other relevant stakeholders to increase the scale and quality of finance for development. Second, we believe that partnership for development is indispensable. In this regard, we believe that for any partnership to produce tangible results, it should be based on mutual confidence, mutual respect, and shared understanding. And with that, in conclusion, we fully recognize the importance of the role of the UNDP to support an inclusive, comprehensive, and sustainable development for Vietnam, as well as for many other member states. We believe that our partnership will be strengthened and broadened in our new development phase for green, inclusive economic recovery and just, equitable energy transition. I thank you very much for your attention.